All right, we're in business. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, so sequence we're going to start doing is first three stages to each meetup. We're going to do what we do, just a quick overview for anybody that's never been here before. We're going to do announcements, and then we're going to do today's goals. And so what we do, we're an organized group of dedicated, educated, activated Intactivists. We work to enhance each of our own potential, utilizing the skills and talents of our volunteers. We give volunteers opportunities. We organize, we plan, and we carry out educational outreach for high-value targets with the goal of influencing. So what I've seen is that if we find high-value targets, we write out campaigns, and we contact them. We can do a lot more than what we've been doing in Intactivism. So for announcements, basically, I want to show you guys we made some progress on the doulas and midwives database, and I'm going to basically show you a sequence I've developed to gather all the data for everybody that does one of these databases. So it's going to make it a lot easier for everybody that wants to help with the databases. Let me show you guys real quick. Okay, so this is a national group of different parenting and practitioner organizations. A lot of them have to deal specifically with doulas and midwives. So what I'm going to do is this database here, we have a large number of fine practitioner directories. Okay, so this is kind of like an example of how this is powerful, right? How we can utilize this information in the future. This is just one of the very many ways we can utilize this database. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy this column. I'm going to place it over here into what I do. These are all links, right? So when I go back through here, these are links that we've collected, and these are directories and database filled with their own database. So in lots of certifying agencies, for instance, I used to be a personal trainer, and so I had a lot of different certifications I would get, and you'd have a group of practitioners that each certification would then have a directory, and that was kind of like their benefit to their practitioners, where they would help market their business by allowing them to have people that were checking out that practitioner to search for them in a local area, right? So anyways, I go on one of these. I'm just going to open up a couple of these. Okay, so just so you guys, I'm just showing you guys how I'm doing this. That's my main goal with this, just so you guys can see what I'm going to be doing. And then this is for doulas, and I want to expand the doulas and midwives database. I think it's one of our most powerful instant change, potential, immediate source of saving babies. Like, I literally think if we were running this program full tilt right now, we would be saving babies next week. So check this out. So these are practitioners. So look right here, search by state, right? So I can go, well, we're doing New York and California. So I go to California here. Look at these. These are all the nurturing, parenting, trainers, and consulting listings, right? So these are all the California ones for just this nurturing parenting. Well, these are all extremely high value targets. That's just one agency. I go to this one. This is another practitioner directory, birth psychology, right? I can come over here, state, city, let's go by state, California. No records in California. Yeah, I must have did that right. Anyways, you can see this. Basically what I go through is I get all these database, or all these, I pull out all these databases for the area that we're targeting, right? So let's say I'm targeting New York. So I go and I get all these people from New York. I hit all these databases. I grab all of these. And then what I do is I put them in the database for you. So this is the California doulas and midwives database, right? We just started it, right? So what I do is to create the database, we need some sort of way of making sure that we're hitting certain areas, right? And to hit the bigger areas, we look by population. What I did was I looked for all the California cities by population. This is a direct listing of all the cities by population. So this tells me exactly how much population is in each city, right? And so each tab at the bottom here will have these, right? So when I go into these databases here and I start filling these out, I'm going to basically start filling in the web pages into here, into this page right here on the database. So you can see how I started to fill these in right here. I had a lot more for New York, but this is just the start of California. But so the person who's doing the database, you would go in here and you would click on this, click on that. It's going to open up the page right for you. Bam, there you go. Now you can go right and you can just search for your information. So you're going to come in here, you're going to find, oh, there's a contact me page. You open that. You know, you're basically going to gather all the database from this. This is a birth place in California, right? So this is a nurse, an educator, a doula, a photographer, a mother. So you think this person is going to have a lot of influence, right? Or a lot of people that they're going to be talking to that are pregnant, right? So immediately this person can have an influence. And then what we're going to do is once we start running these programs, we're going to create a list of doulas that are intact friendly doulas that have stated that they are friendly for intact children, okay? Then what I would like to do is I'd like to have a certifying educational program that all the doulas and midwives who want to can go through for free and therefore gain a, you know, kind of like this, where you have a, or I'm sorry, those other ones I was showing you, where you have a practitioner, a database, and someone can say, I want an intact friendly doula in New Orleans, right? And then they can go on there and they can find an intact friendly doula in New Orleans. And so that's kind of what I envision. You know, obviously it's going to take a little time and a lot of work, but, and that's where all of you guys come into play. That's the new midwife and doula sequence database sequence. So what I was thinking is how to make it easier for you guys when you're doing this. You could pick any subject. You could pick scientists, you could pick universities, you could pick religious leaders, you could pick child psychologists, you could pick university professors, you could pick whatever you're interested in, right? And you could do that, okay? So whatever you're interested in, my goal is to encourage that, but to make sure that you're doing something. You're not just sitting there doing nothing, that every day you're taking steps, you know, progressively being proactive as opposed to, you know, just, you know, kind of letting it play out on Facebook. Okay, so right now, some difficult challenge with our software development. We were working on a software development system that's going to make our database development easier, but that is going to be on hold for a little bit just because we have some difficulties with that, and I apologize. So I didn't even want to bring that up until I thought it was going to be really solid, and it was, and it is. But the thing is it's just not going to work right now. So there's no reason for us to stop our database collection. So we really need to step up our database game for a little while longer because, yeah, maybe we may be able to do it easier in the future. But right now, there's babies that we could be saving tomorrow, today, right now, right? So we need to step up that database game and keep that going. And we all need to be contributing. So today I wanted to talk about our place in NLI, like what I envisioned NLI as, next level intactivism. The reason I called it next level is because I wanted to create something next level. Like I didn't want it to be typical, right? Like we have an organization that, you know, there'll be an outreach organization or something like that. You know, they have a website and, you know, maybe they'll contribute to events and stuff like that. But I wanted to be really proactive. And that's why I created the database and the market. We're basically marketing. We're doing internet marketing for our cause, right? And we're utilizing all of our skills, all of our talents, and all of the technology we have. Like we're kind of, you know, it's a chess game, right? We were playing chess and we did really good on Facebook. We were kicking ass on Facebook. And then the tech giant said, you know what? We don't want all this information getting out there. So we're going to limit the outreach of people that are saying, you know, controversial things, right? So anyways, so what I saw of NLI is I want us to reach our max potential, each individual as our own, right? So each of us need to reach our own skill potential. So the way to do that is if you're a graphic designer, if you're, you know, you have the gift of gab, you know how to talk, if you're a good writer, if you're a good worker bee, if you're good at, database development or whatever that skill is, that skill set is, I want you to utilize that within your Intactivism. Okay. So, what I would encourage you to do is bring that up to me if you want some advice or help with that, or ways of utilizing your skills. For instance, Reed wanted to do the software development. That's on hold, but Reed's got that skill, right? And we wanted to use his potential. So he started doing that. So anyways, but I was kind of, we still have to do the work though, right? So we still have to commit. So what I want to do is I want to talk about ways of getting ourselves to be consistent and to set goals and to make sure that the bland, boring stuff, like filling out the database is done, because without that database, without the list, we don't have much going, right? I mean, if you got a skill set that we can utilize, like making mimes, great, you should be doing that instead of doing database development. But if you don't really have something like that, like every one of us, I've got skills in video editing and graphic design and writing and speaking, but I'm doing database development, because without the database development, there's nothing, right? I don't have reporters to talk to. So that's why, anyways, so you want to follow your passion. So whatever it is, so if you have a passion for psychology, maybe you should do child psychology. If you have a passion for reaching doulas or nurses, or communicating with that level of medical professionals, that's a very powerful thing, but it's really, like I said, it's all about consistency. So how are some strategies to be consistent? What I do is I like to focus is on the outcome, right? Like, why are we doing this? Like, why are you spending your time doing this? Like, it's not about developing a database for sure, right? That's not the most exciting thing in the world. I like to think of it as like this, like, to me, this is kind of exciting. Like when I'm going through and I'm looking at all these reporters and I'm trying to organize this stuff and put it into the database, I imagine that every 10 outlets that I do, I'm going to save one child, right? So if I run through 10 outlets in a night, right? That's one child I save a night. And really, that's not even that much. That's not even exaggeration. That might even be conservative as we get this running. So once this is up and running, like we're still like in that stage, right? That initial kind of slow starting stage, right? Where it's dragging a little bit, but it's starting to pick up. And we have the database, we have the information, and we're writing the actual stuff right now as we speak. So the key to success, make habits. So tie the event, say for instance, you're gonna do 5 media outlets per day, right? Or whatever organization or group you're focusing on. You're gonna do 5 outlets per day. So what I would do is I would say, as soon as you get home from work, knock out 5 of them and just be done with it, right? Or, just before you brush your teeth, you knock out 5 of them, or just before you go to bed. You know what I'm saying? Just tie it into an event that happens every day that's cyclical, so that reminds you that, hey, I need to do this as well, right? So, for instance, in the military, we would do we call them ins and outs. So to make sure we did our exercises, every time we would leave the building, we would do a bunch of push-ups, and every time we would come in the building, we would do a bunch of squat jumps. So we would make sure that we would do that every single time, and that we tied those events into it, and over that time built that consistency. And pretty soon as a habit, you do it, you're not even, it's not even a big deal. So that's what I want you to do. And so anchor it in time. So anchor it to a specific event in time, whatever works for you, but anchor it to a specific event in time. Focus on the results, focus on what you're achieving, not the actual process, okay? And build the feeling. What I mean by that is you're doing something for your passion, right? You're doing this for a purpose. You're trying to save children from this violent sexual assault, right? So this is a valuable, important thing. So focus on feeling that and feeling that energy when you do this, when you have these meetings, when you talk with other Intactivists, whenever you're doing anything involved in this, make it a feeling of a positive feeling inside that, hey, I may be struggling, there's maybe stressful, I may not like what I'm doing, but I'm pushing forward, and it's making me feel that gratitude of success. So that's all I'm saying is try to come up with some strategies of making yourself consistent, and that way we're going to gain more consistency. And it's, like I said, it's building it one little thing at a time. If you get 5 every day, that's 2 children a day, or a child every 2 days, right? That you're going to save from this, right? Let's say let's say you talk to that one doula and she ends up saving 40 children over her lifetime, right? It just from one doula. And that's how it works a lot of these times. You're going to, when you start making these phone calls, and I envision every one of us that does a database, and not everybody's going to want to do the tele-intactivism, but I would encourage it. And this is why I would do that. If you develop this database, right, you're going to start to learn this database. You're already the one that created it. You're going to start to learn the database. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go through it. We're going to send out the emails. So once I have them all written out, we're going to have a bunch of them written out first before we actually start sending. Once we start sending, you're going to help me send. So every week, instead of gathering new database, what you're doing is you're sending emails, right? You're on to phase 2. So it's no longer just the database. And then once we're done with 5 or 6 of those, right? We've done 5 or 6 weeks, and shouldn't take a lot of time. You know, I'm talking like sending 400 or 500 emails in a night, maybe even less than that, right? So that's not that hard. And then at the end of that cycle, then we're going to do the calling cycle or the call cycle, and that's the tele-intactivism cycle. And again, it's going to be so much more fun, and you're going to really see the results. And that's why I say right now it doesn't maybe seem like it, but in the long term, if we continue to do this and we're consistent with this, we're gonna build that situation where we're gonna see a lot of success with this. I guarantee it, because I've already seen it. I've already seen it work. Okay, anyways, so now what I want to do is let's go into the American Myths rebuttals. We're gonna spend about 15 minutes on that, and then I want to review and organize our outreach campaign. So this is the part where I want you to contribute, throw out your ideas. We're going to do this together. I envision making this kind of like almost like an open source software. Like you don't have to pay for this. You can jump right in. You can contribute, throw in your own, because the more feedback I get from other people, the better off I'm going to be at what I'm doing. So you're going to make me better. You could say, you know what, take out that sentence right there. That kind of rubs me the wrong way. Throw in this, or maybe you could tweak it this way, say this a little bit, or, hey, you forgot about this, just, make me better. So anyways, American Myths rebuttals. Let's quickly go over some of the excuses we've done already, kind of get your juices flowing. So, for instance, it's my opinion. Facts are not opinions. What about your child's opinion? What about the person's opinion being cut? Okay, women supporting genital mutilation of boys. It's the utmost hypocrisy. You wouldn't cut a girl. Okay, I'm his mother. It's my choice. What about his body, his choice? Hygiene. I'm just gonna read down the list. You guys have already been through this a little bit, so I want you to throw any additional ones that you want to add in there. I'm just gonna read the list down there. Okay, women supporting genital mutilation of boys. Okay, I'm his mother. It's my choice. Okay, how about it's the husband's decision. He has the penis, matching penis, hygiene. Men, I'm just fine. I'm the man. Women can't tell me how my penis should be when he doesn't have one. Anything else in there? Any thoughts? Okay, because let's start filling out the ones that we don't have. Okay, his future sex partners will thank me. So what would you say, James, if someone says to you his future sex partners would thank me? Any thoughts on that one?
If you were to reverse the genders.
Yep, if you were to reverse the genders.
Yeah, like if I were to say that.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, well, I got my girl, but, the future husband will thank me. That's just crazy.
You wouldn't cut your daughter for the fetish of some potential mate. Okay. Any other ones? It's a really good one. What about you, Michelle? Bentley, any thoughts?
Hey, I'm looking.
Yes, future sex partners will thank me. I think that as you could say, as women find out how what their men are missing reduces their pleasure, they will seek out intact men. Any other ones? Let's see. It's gross. Okay, that's I would say. Let's see. Sex shaming a child is disgusting and ignorant. Sometimes just coming out and saying it are very valuable. Oh, you know what? I was thinking about this last time. I was trying to explain things about how my experiences with psychology of how I think that the whole kumbaya intactivist approach is not necessarily the right way that we should be approaching things or teaching intactivists. And I think we should, of course, teach that the initial approach always has to be one of acceptance and giving them the gift of giving them the time that you took, right? That all of each one of us took the time to kind of wrap this around in our mind. It took us a little bit of understanding to fully understand it like we do to get to the stage where we get upset about it and even driven to actually meet up here and have meetings on this stuff and plan out different things and events, right? So anyways, initially, of course, treat them with that respect, but then if it gets to that lowest of the low, when you're just into that stage of that, okay, and this is the way I want to describe it. When you're in a flock, right? A flock of sheep, and some sheep just leave that flock. Other sheep get upset about that, right? I call them sheep dogs, right? The sheep dog's job is to pull all the other sheep that go away back into the herd, right? So say you wear this new style just came in and you're wearing it with your friends, and one day you just show up and it's completely the wrong style and everybody starts making fun of you, right? Oh my gosh, you're not cool, you're not hip, you're not up with the trends, right? So they start making fun of you. That's the sheepdogs, right? So what the sheepdog job is to do is to make themselves feel better because you have challenged their position. And when you challenge their position, they've bought full line and sinker. They feel threatened, right? So their job is to bring you back in the fold. So what they'll do is they'll socially shame you. This is where you reverse socially shame. And that's why I say that the kumbaya approach is not necessarily the only way of doing it. And so what happens is when they start socially shaming you, right? They say the horrible, disgusting things to you, right? What ends up happening is this I've noticed in all sorts of different relationships, right? When you have a level of stress that's built into your relationship, and let's say you have this drag out fight with someone that you really care about, you love, right? And you have this fight and you're just like so pissed off and you're enraged and you just hash it out, right? And you let it go. And just at the end of that, you just feel this emotional release, this jump, right? This relaxation. And all of a sudden you had this barrier that was, you couldn't connect with her. And all of a sudden you can connect with that person, right? And that thing is gone. Whatever it is, that inhibition inside you is gone. And that's this type of thing that I see when you create a conflict, right? Followed by a resolution. So it's a conflict resolution. As human beings, we all desire to have social interaction and connection with our group. So what you do is you purposely create the conflict resolution. So what occurs is when the sheepdogs come after you and their goal is to drag you back into that flock and to shame you into saying, oh, you're so right. I'm sorry I ever challenge your accolade of this leader that you're following, right? Because it's usually, some sort of hierarchical leadership following thing, right? So if you challenge that, right, when you step outside of that and you show them that you're not intimidated by their social shaming, then you take another step. They actually put you now on a pedestal. They've now, because they're followers, right? They now see you as a leader. You've challenged the leader and you withstood the social shaming. You've now showed yourself to be a new leader. This is social psychology. So what you do is when you're interacting with these people, you can use social shaming to bring them back and just tell them how ridiculous what they're saying is. Be very matter-of-factly. Justin
Yes,
said it so good last week. I wish he
the
was here.
cult of the cutter mommy is truly incredible.
Yes, Greg, what's up,
They're
brother?
real. Hey, yeah. It's a real sheepdog situation that goes on over there. They police each other in these mommy forums, and they don't like people to get out of line. If too many people start getting out of line, well, in places where they still control it, they'll just start kicking people out. But I've seen these funny, more recent cases, and this is where I really think we're starting to win in the culture. They're not able to appeal to the managers of some of these pages, and they're just please delete this post. I saw this one just the other day, where like a popular mommy blogger posted against it, and actually most of her followers were supportive of it or supportive of her position against it. But then there was just a couple of these saying, oh, I beg you, please, this is so divisive, delete this post, I beg you. And somebody else was saying, I think
that they don't want to be
the devil or
challenged.
something. Yeah, just crazy stuff.
Yeah,
they
basically just don't want to be challenged.
I am so glad that we have gotten to the point where people are actually starting to feel some heat.
Yeah.
Bentley, you're so lucky.
Yeah.
Okay, Greg is, if you haven't been to Greg Malchick's channel on YouTube, you've got to go watch Greg's channel. He's got I've seen Greg dismantle arguments in ways that would, Christopher Hitchens style. I don't know if you've ever watched Christopher Hitchens. He's a very, really good debater.
Yeah.
Craig will dismantle a cutter Christopher Hitchens style. It's a beautiful thing to watch.
You want to see something fairly interesting is the interview I did on the Ralph Retort, where I basically fought with callers for about 2 hours. And
we could go watch that video and just pull things from that video and just start filling this in. That's how good that video was.
I've said this before. I actually think it needs to become more of the template for the interactions we have, particularly with opposing sides during debates and with the media. We need to be a lot more hostile, a lot more combative.
Exactly. The
whole letting the
whole,
preconceived notions stand.
The whole go along to get along, like I'm gonna just belly up just because I'm trying to be I'm trying to manipulate people to get their attention. Especially the sheepdogs that are gonna come after you. The sheepdogs are the most easy to change, by the way. The ones that are sitting there in the flock, they're the ones that are they're watching the sheepdogs. So this is how it works. They watch the sheepdogs, and then when the sheepdogs say, oops, I can't get them to break, they're going to come at you. They're going to try to break you. When they see you're not wavering, they start to waver. And then when they start to waver, it takes a little bit of time, but then the rest of the sheep, you can literally take over a flock this way. It's psychology. Like you can watch.
And I think that's what I'm seeing on these forums, these mommy forums. These sheepdog, there's another name for it. It's called gatekeeping. These people are cultural gatekeepers. This is the cultural police state that self-perpetuates this, and humiliating these people and mocking them in front of their own sheep is very valuable.
It's the only way, I think, in some sort of ways, and this is why I'm one of those people that I'm upset about this, and I'm literally, I think that I have literally anger issues because of this. Like I'm like picking myself apart, and I was looking at my scar the other day, and I literally have like a 3 to 4 millimeter scar. So there is a large bit of tissue, and then I have this boil that broke apart when I was like 16, that chunks of tissue kind of poked out like this, and it's very sensitive. So I think I had a really rough circumcision, and I think that created a anger problem with me my whole life. So I've had anger issues. So when I get involved with this, and somebody's saying, oh, let's do the horrible things to the little child, and I understand what this is, it makes me very makes me angry, right? And I've noticed that if I channel my anger, well, first off, if I come out right off the bat with my anger, I'm screwing up, right? That's very important to understand, is that you have to, it's a rhythm, right? Like when you first come off into somebody, you still have to come off correct, come off respectful. give them the respect that you would give anybody, and give them the room when initially, right off the bat, right? When you're involved in initial conversation or something initially, be cool. Don't come out there attacking them right off the bat. And even if there are intactivists doing that, don't attack those intactivists. What they're doing is part of the whole structural movement of that social group. So that's part of the influence of that social group. We have a hive mind. And when you control the group, you control the hive mind, and you can, just like this, you control everything. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Edward Bernays, but if you've never heard of Edward Bernays, this is the single most
The guy
influential
who
person in your life.
popularized,
Yeah.
was he the diamond mine guy or the tobacco guy?
Well, he started the tobacco. He basically broke the taboo on women smoking tobacco, because back in the 1930s, there was a taboo on women smoking tobacco. I'll tell you how I like to explain this to people, because this is kind of like what I envision us doing. Like, this is where I came up with a lot of these things that I'm coming up with to do this. Anyways, so there was a taboo of women smoking, right? It was seen as a manly thing. Women weren't supposed to be manly. Women are supposed to be feminine, right? This was the time of the women's suffrage, where, right after we had the war with the World War II, where we had all these women showing up to factories because the men were fighting the war, and the women started going to the factories. So the women were taking these, progressive, or I guess traditionally male roles in society, and they also started to want to have equal pay and to have voting rights and all this stuff. And I'm a libertarian. I believe in equal vote rights across the board, like men's rights, women's rights, babies' rights, purple rights, pink rights. So I don't give a shit rights. Everybody should have rights, right? Like, you shouldn't take away somebody else's rights. Well, Edward Bernays was a very smart man. He was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud came out with the ego and the id and the subconscious, and you realize that, just a little bit of background is like you have about 2 billion bits of information. That means 2 billion intercellular firing synapses happening at every second in your brain. You're aware of about 2,000 of them. That's an extremely small amount of the processing that's happening in your brain that you're actually consciously aware of. So, Freud realizes there's a tremendous amount of subconscious that happens in order for us to survive and be alive, right? So subconscious things such as behavioral, certain behavioral characteristics, such as when we're in a group, right? Our behaviors change depending upon the group that we're in. Our behavior modification, how we interact when we're around someone who's dominant or who's submissive or who's, a friend or who's a lover or who's, a boss. So all those relationships change, right? So anyways, with women's suffrage, Edward Bernays knew that there is this huge movement of this women's movement, right? And the tobacco companies came to him and said, can you break this taboo? We want women smoking. We want to double our customers. And so Edward Bernays said, yeah, let's use the women's suffrage movement. What we do is we make the cigarettes like a kind of like a phallic symbol, like the women are taking over they're making their own symbol, right? So the women, they had them Edward Bernays paid these certain socialites that were well known in the New York Easter parade to light up these cigarettes at a certain point in time in the parade when all these paparazzi were taking pictures. He paid the reporters to write articles. This is literally paying the reporters, right? To write articles about the torches of freedom. Women are standing up and, taking over these, male roles that, that we would traditionally were seen as male dominated, right? And he overnight broke the taboo of women smoking. Overnight. Well, we don't have a major media outlet, so we can't pay reporters to put ourselves in the front of the Times. We don't have an Easter parade. We don't have any of those things, but we can use the same techniques, right? And that's where the database and the process goes into play. And that's why we're writing all these emails and all that other stuff. Anyways, let's get back to this. Sex shaming a child is disgusting and ignorant. Anything else? It's gross. I like to say, maybe you are, or I like to say, ewy, a child. I know it's just stupid. Ewy, a child's.
Or you smell like
genitals.
fish.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear
That
this
just-
very commonly from women, so I can't help but taste the delicious
Daniel.
irony.
What's that, Craig?
Well, I very often hear it from women, which is why I can't help but note the irony.
Oh, it's
And
so
this is not-
irony.
I don't mean some people have gotten into a huff of me pointing this out, and I don't mean this as a shaming on either. I'm just pointing out the disparity in, right?
I
Yeah,
have a picture on
that's
my phone that are cleaning supplies from like every store that are literally meant for women's odor, infections, all that stuff. I literally have a picture on my phone
Yeah.
because they have the same stuff for smell, all kinds of stuff at the store.
Have you guys seen this? I'm just going to show it to you guys. I know some of you have, some of you haven't. This is my website, and it's got a MIME database on it. So the NLI MIME database, which you can go on there and you can grab any of these databases, or I'm sorry, any of these images. So you go to here, you go hygiene, any of these issues. Really, there's 275 different issues here. So let's scroll down here. Let's see hygiene.
Oh, you know, Stephen Barendrecht is also doing a big meme database. I'll have to hook you up with some of his material.
Yeah, see, we could combine these. I have 4,500 mimes. They're categorized into 275 different subjects. So this is the mime hygiene database, right? So this is right here. You can see right here. There's tons of. So when you run out of doing the same one, you get tired of running the same. You know, I use a lot of the same mimes over and over and over again, because they're with different people. But you know, you run out with the same ones with the same person. You can come in here and you can get new ideas and just kind of refresh your options and come up with new ways. I mean, if you run out of ways of approaching these myths, you can come on here and just go through these mimes. And there's tons of ways on these mimes that we could start filling these in as well. Any other ones with "it's gross"? I like you sit on glass genitals. It means that you don't throw rocks when you live in a glass house. In Eritrea, you are disgusting.
That it's gross to make a baby look like it has a chronic erection.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's gross to give babies erections in order to do it. It's gross to strip babies naked and tie them to a medieval torture board. I mean, these people, almost everything they say about us is projection, and you have to do the jujitsu. You have to deflect it right back at them.
Yeah, that's a good point. See, this is why I like Greg. Everything they throw at you is projection, and that is so true.
Oh, you're a pedophile because you care about this. Oh,
yeah.
So the people diddling kids with knives isn't really okay.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a really weird thing. Men happy. Are there other body parts that people can cut off without pissing you off?
Women who are circumcised are happy to be circumcised.
Yep.
Well, they're happy. They're fine.
Like 80%.
It has high approval rates in just about everywhere that it happens.
You don't know. How can you be sure when you don't know what you are missing?
I just get confused because I just don't understand, like, why, like, who do you think owns your penis, like, attached to your body? Like, that's how I like to tell them, like, you own it. I don't understand how anyone could think that. Like, why
Most
would
people just do not view
But it's like, it's like
their
none of
kids
this
as
is-
sentient human
I'm
beings
talking about the
until they're
person
like
who's,
4,
like-
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, but even men who say like, "Oh, I'm happy my parents did it," I'm like, "Do you?" And like you tell them, "No, it's yours," and it's like they disagree. They don't think their own is theirs. I don't get it.
That's just what they tell themselves because.
But yet, part of this is driven by the current irreversibility of it that makes it so hopeless. It serves almost no value for them personally to confront it. So
That's ironic because what you were saying, I just said you have no choice. Okay. You had no choice, so of course you're going to protect your ego.
That's true.
Yeah.
They're kind of backed in a corner.
Yeah, you're backed in a corner. How would you know if you've never had one? I like to say it's half, bro. Half. 75% of the nerve endings. It's absolutely quite ridiculous to be happy. Elated. Okay, that's good. It's legal, so it must be right.
slavery is
is legal.
Okay, we could say
Can we just pause for a moment to appreciate how
Yeah.
dumb some of these people are to think that their morality is defined by the law?
Yeah, female circumcision used to be legal.
Like, we are dealing with serious room temperature potato IQs here.
I know.
but the thing is like these people have the full potential to fully realize everything that you're saying. This is a weird psychological thing. I've been trying to understand it, like unpack it, like like try to figure it out, like, and it is. I mean, it is like these people are utter idiots. Like to come up with these things and to say them, you literally have to go against everything that you say in every other area of every other part of your life. Like you wouldn't say this about anything else. You know what I'm saying? It's just this breaks every single rule that you have in your life. It's crazy, and you just wonder how could you literally hold such a conflicting, thing in your mind. I'm a protector of children. Let's cut a part off a child because I'm insecure with that body part. You know what I mean? Like, how do you hold that duality in your mind? It doesn't make sense. But that's why I think writing these things out and like having this as a list and then teaching this to Intactivists can be extremely valuable. And I know we've done this like 3 times, we've done this, we're still working on this 3 times, but look at this stuff is so valuable. Like, I just think this is really something that is worth the time that we're spending on this. And I think
love it.
yeah, it's fun, right? It's kind of fun, it's challenging, and it's going to jog your mind too. Like everybody that's on here, you're getting ideas too. So, and everybody that is on here, I want you to have access to this stuff as well. This will be on the website eventually. Everything that's going to be on here, that is going to be on the website. And now we're videotaping this, so this is probably going to go on YouTube as well. Okay, it's legal, so it must be right. Anything else? Any other thoughts?
It used to be illegal for women to vote.
Well, what about
Yes.
segregation too? That wasn't even that long ago when that was legal.
Yeah, women to vote. That's really good because women love that one. Slavery was once legal. And what was the other one you just said, Michelle? Is that Michelle or Bentley?
Oh, I was just mentioning about like segregation because that wasn't even that long ago, and it's like they were literally separating. It's just, oh, I don't
It was
know.
like
I was
50
just,
years ago, right?
yeah, I mean, it wasn't long ago at all, and if laws are just no
Okay.
reason, it doesn't justify anything.
Medical organizations. I get a lot of people would say that one where no medical organizations in the world recommends it. But now you got the CDC recommending it. So
Who? The CDC?
the CDC, yeah.
So
Oh,
if they bring up the AAP, just tell them that they tried to legalize FGM in 2010. Are you sure that's the people you want to cite? I'm
So is
surprised that
CDC
particular one
and-
isn't used to destroy their authority appeal more than it actually is. If they invoke the AAP, tell them
Yeah.
that they tried to re-legalize FGM in 2010.
That's a really good point.
And I'm surprised that that is not invoked more often than.
I was gonna say when the AAP tried to do the legalized thing, I read about that because it was they basically tried to make it legal to do like a ritual nick on there, and they even said that it was less invasive than male, and it was crazy. When I watched American Circumcision, I remember them going over it in it.
Yeah, it's crazy that I mean, the American mind is really we get FGM, like we fully comprehend it, but then this massive bridge between that and a child, like that child is not sexually aware. Like it's a child,
Exactly.
right? Child don't become sexually aware till they're like 15, 16. So when you're cutting that child doesn't know, oh, I'm a male, this isn't supposed to hurt that much. I mean, it's
Yeah.
okay. Medical organizations, any other ones? Other thoughts? Yes.
That the Royal Dutch Medical Association opposes it. They're against the AAP statement,
Royal Dutch
and that it
Pediatric,
conflicts with
Association.
conflicts with the child's rights and the doctor's oath, that it has long-term consequences.
Also, it's a
Hold on.
circular. It's circular logic, and it's a fallacy authority appeal because it's like we're accusing these people of orchestrating a human rights violation. You don't get to do a circular logic thing and just say, oh, but they promote it. Well, yes, of course they promote it. That's what we just said.
This is just where you get those appeal to authorities kind of weak arguments. You know, like all of these arguments are really weak. Like they're all weak. There's no justification for cutting a child's genitals. There's absolutely none. There's nobody. You could be. I don't care if you were a super AI and Richard Hitchens now comes back as a pro cutter and as a super AI, you still couldn't justify it. There's just no this is illogical.
It's stated by an international group of 38 physicians from 16 European countries, and in Pediatrics Today.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite articles.
It's a bit of a mouthful, but basically that other doctors, like in Europe, are horrified by our statement. It would be like the equivalent of if Canada was promoting FGM, we would just be horrified by that, you know?
Saying it just like that, I think, is one of the, for some reason, it's hard for me, but well, I think a lot of us to just say something so simple, what he just said like that, right? You know, your synopsis was just perfectly said. So other doctors are horrified by our support of FGM. Imagining how we would feel if Canada.
What if we did get certain professionals to publish things, but that would support us? An idea is, how about a hypnotherapist? Now they know they find deep psychological trauma, and they know that from birth to the age of 5, you're in the theta waves brain setting, which is a highly influential mindset. And what if they were able to explain that the trauma from the cutting, of a baby is very
Yeah, I think if we had
rooted.
I want to have like some therapists like what you're talking about.
Yes,
When we get
trauma
into
therapists.
I think, okay, so let's think about this. Let's imagine we start having these systems function, right? Let's say we got our doula and midwife database running, and we're phase 2, phase 3. We've done numerous campaigns. We've developed relationships with some of these people. We have a list of doulas that are friendly. We have a certifying situation where we can certify doulas and midwives and say, and so that the mothers, they can come to our website and say, okay, this, you know what I'm saying? Like when we have all that system created, the system will build upon itself. So we can then, reach out to doulas and midwives and say, hey, why don't you come here and let's get your statements, and why don't you come out and explain to other doulas how to approach this issue, how to do this, or how to, deal with this situation. And then, you know what I'm saying? Like, so we could do the same with child psychologists. So what you're saying is get a child psychologist to join us. And that I think is very, very powerful. But we have to
No,
like develop the database
well,
first. So
no, not just them. Um, Hypnotherapists actually who deal with trauma. So they deal with trauma that adults have gone through, but a lot of the adults, men, still may have some very subconscious trauma from this. And
yeah,
so,
I
yeah,
mean,
I just
there's a
thought
lot of
that's a profession that could speak up. I just thought I saw some. It's just an idea, like that
yeah,
would
yeah,
be,
that's a really good idea. I mean,
that
see,
that could
that's
be
what I'm saying.
someone
Like
who could speak
if
for us
if
and say,
if
like,
we if we
I'm a
don't have the if
professional.
we don't have a database, that idea goes nowhere. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
yeah,
Like,
but although that is it kind of is the appeal to authority argument. I'm gonna tell you that though.
well, what I'm seeing here and you say is that if we had a hypnotherapist, that could help men with these types of issues. Yeah, I mean, well, if we had a database that we were communicating with hypnotherapists and different psychologists, we could develop the situation which we would create the likelihood where we can get therapists to come on board, and then, recognize that, hey, there's a whole niche of men that have been damaged by this. My mom
Yeah,
does EMDR. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's
yeah. No, I've heard it. I don't know what
yeah.
it stands for, but I sound something about how you do overcome trauma with like these pulses. You associate it, and then you look to the side with your eyes, and it rewires your brain. So,
What'd you say?
that's
You start speaking quiet. I can't hear you.
it there's pulses with machines, and it rewires your brain when you think of your trauma.
That's awesome. Well, I hope. I
But
mean, amazing. The
that's the
teaching would be amazing.
EMDR thing, right? Isn't that the EMDR
Yeah,
therapy?
and no,
That's
it's no. The EMDR is using left and right brain integration while you're dealing with certain stressful situations. It
yeah,
allows your
that's
brain to reorganize the
rewire
structure of
kind
the
of.
emotional, so that you can disassociate the emotional response to the trauma.
That would be a credible professional to say, like, okay, I've had to help men overcome the trauma that they
Of
experience
course,
with their
yeah. I mean, see, the thing is, until we get people to recognize this and validate and recognize this as a problem, there's no support for it. There's no market for a psychologist to deal with men that are damaged with this yet. So that's why we have to create the groundwork. Unless we do the groundwork, none of that stuff happens. That's the whole point. Okay, human rights.
Human rights require bodily autonomy.
The universality of the right to physical integrity.
And in the same way that you would oppose foot binding or oppose FGM, you should also oppose MGM, you know, because if you're going to protect a girl, you should also protect a boy, you know?
Yeah, see, just saying it how it is, like, that's just the simplest thing in the world, right? That's like the most obvious statement you could possibly say about this, but it's so powerful. That's why I want to write this stuff down. Okay, so you would say you would oppose foot binding. You should also
MGM.
to protect. Okay, girls. You should also boys. This is the most fundamental human right there is. Okay, every human owns their own body.
I don't know really if this is good for the list and stuff, but I do just know I like to tell people that bodily integrity is not a female privilege.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Yeah, I find it useful to ask people why they actually think that FGM is bad, because you dissect it. I think to a certain degree they've started smoking their own dope when they say, "Oh, FGM has no benefits," and blah 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 blah. Well, if it did, would that justify it? Well, they'll go nuts on you. No, of course
That's
not.
a good point.
So what they're really speaking to is sort of a gut level instinct toward physical integrity, but only for girls. A lot of the argument about the comparison between MGM and FGM revolves around the idea, oh, you can't compare them. FGM has no medical benefits. That's not even true. We have Stallings et al., Kanki et al., reduces HIV transmission by 50%. At least that's what it's apparently what the data shows. That doesn't justify it. But you run this by them and you say, well, then would that make it acceptable? Because there seems to be evidence that it might actually have, benefits. Usually they start short-circuiting at this point, and you start seeing their eyes staring off in the distance. You have to get to the heart of what they actually are thinking, and you have to sort of do values clarification on their behalf, and point out that what they're really acting on is just sort of a primal gut level respect for physical integrity, but only for women. But that it's a universal human right, and you have to extend it to men.
Yeah, last time we talked about questioning, because I think questioning is one way to get people to, if you don't understand the person you're talking to, like, you're going to have a lot less likelihood of breaking into their mindset. I had a 14-year-old kid today on Twitter who I went in on. He called himself a libertarian. I was like, you're the fakest libertarian I've ever met. Like, this is the non-aggression principle is against attacking somebody. How are you going to justify literally assaulting a child's genitals with a knife for trivial medical benefit? And this kid said at the end, he said, I guess I just didn't know much about this. I was like, holy cow. And then he like totally went back, and I was just like, I told him, I was like, dude, you are a man today, bro. I have so much respect for, I gained so much respect for you because, and I wrote this on Twitter afterwards, that I think I have more respect for a person that is wrong and changes their mind than a person that is correct on the initially correct. Because if you're wrong and you change your mind, it's harder than to be you know what I mean? It's harder for us to admit those things. So that's what kind of like what we're working on is that type of mentality. And that's why I think go ahead.
I think it's also worth pointing out, we have so much better opportunities among younger people. I don't mean to offend anybody, but I've mostly written off, at least in terms of public outreach, people above the age of, say, 25. And I mostly focus on the younger cohort, at least for public outreach. Now, Carter, you may know Carter Steinhoff. He has parallel plans. He wants to be directly lobbying state legislators and trying to get state legislation, which I think is important too. That needs to be a parallel branch of what we're doing.
I mean, I would love to link up with him because what I want to do is I want to create a political outreach that would do just the database stuff that we're doing. Because all of those things, what he's talking about is if we don't have a database that we've ran a seasoned list, right? I don't know if you guys remember what I said, a seasoned list. A seasoned list means it's already a list that you've been marketing to. These are in internet marketing. This is a customer list that have already purchased from you, right? They've already been your tribe, so to say. They followed you for a while. They're your group. That list is so important. So targeting politicians, if we had that database running for 3 to 6 months ahead of time, and then we start to lobby these politicians, we're going to get a lot further. You know what I'm saying? We also need to do this with judges. I know there's a barrier to getting a hold of judges, and if anybody can come up with ideas with that, because if we can get into judges, maybe even showing up and trying to meet with them, like showing up to their office hours or something. I don't know.
I've thought about targeting the district attorneys and prosecutors and saying, hey, why don't you consider because there's so much diversity and there's so many of them. You could make the argument, hey, if you're friendly to this, maybe you could start bringing generic assault and battery charges.
I was going to say that if you're going to get to prosecutors and get to judges, you're also going to have to get past the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, because they're like lawyers, but they advocate for MGM and even for FGM.
Yeah, they're weirdos, man. But we could take them apart, like literally. And that's the thing with the list. Like, society's changing, and these people are going to get caught behind this curve of society, and they're going to be real surprised when they wake up one day and everybody views them like they should view them. You know what I mean? But I know it's going to take some process, and that's, anyways. Okay, men protecting their sons. I think this is a particular mindset to take, especially with men who are, one of the things that I like to do, instead of flip the script, is redirect the script. Where's flip the script? I know I wrote that in here. So flip the script, what I mean by flip the script is, you take it. Okay, I did this to save my nephew. My cousin wrote me this long thing about, oh, we're gonna have this decision about this circumcision, and I'm gonna have it with my husband. We're gonna talk about if circumcision is right for us, and we're gonna research circumcision and da 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 da. So I just rewrote back her letter and I said, da 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 da, child knife rape, and we're going to decide if child knife rape is right for us, and child knife rape is the choice that we're going to do. So it made it look ridiculous, right? It made it look ridiculous that she's having this conversation. So
it's heartbreaking when I see these people post on Facebook and other media about, like, my friend is they're describing it as a discussion and a decision, and I feel like I'm totally powerless. I've given them this information, but I know it's not really getting through, and I'm just like, use a little bit of my parent-child interface strategy. Say, okay, well, I'm not going to have any choice but then to show up at your kid's elementary, middle, and high school in all graphic detail, screaming about this. So,
Gwendolyn, who's not with us tonight, or maybe she is. Are you in there, Gwendolyn? I don't think she is. But Gwendolyn is, she's heading up our Mutilators Accountability Project. So the Mutilators Accountability Project is just what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a web page. I need to do that. I'll probably do that tonight. The web page is just going to be a link for people to send images of, screenshots from the cutters of the cutters, the things that cutters are saying. Like, if you go on my web page here,
make it indexed and searchable by name.
Yeah, things cutters say.
Hey, speaking of things cutters say, did you see that recent thing about where they said that boys deserve the pain?
The one in Ohio, yep.
Oh, that nurse.
We've started to get emails back from the dean of the college out there saying that they're aware of it and they're very concerned about it.
Do you know what may or is going to happen to her?
I don't know.
Nothing's gonna
honestly, I mean, personally, I think this needs to be taken a lot more seriously than it probably is. It needs to be treated more like that woman who said that she'd mistreat Jews or minorities or some crazy stuff. Like, she was a nurse and she said that, and she was like fired and blacklisted.
Yes, she should be kicked out of the program.
This is that level of psychopathy that, like, yeah, you're done. You should not be.
Yes.
So
or on the other hand, she may have. I don't know. She may have been being sarcastic and being like, "That's the state of, it's sad that this is the state of the culture." But I don't know.
Well, that's crazy.
I mean,
Okay, so
I mean,
this
it is sort of in a way an accurate observation. Yep, they deserve it.
yeah, I
Whatever.
mean,
Time will
anyway.
tell.
I think what we're doing is going to be the solution to a lot of these issues because
Negative social consequences. I mean, just this is the beginning of it. That this is right. So, a lot of this cancel culture stuff, it's really bad. It's really gritty, but
I think it needs to happen too. There has to
yeah,
be a social consequence for
yeah,
people to stop engaging in this mindset.
and people being yelled at, people being attacked, people claim we're toxic. Oh,
Mm-mm.
oh, it's so toxic.
No, we would terminate a friendship or a family relationship with someone that is molesting a child in our family or physically
immediately.
abusing. So we have applied that same logic to people that when we have re-educated, if they're not willing to
Yep.
evolve
And
in
I
their
think,
thought process, we terminate those relationships.
and
Yes.
Yeah, my
me
best friend was
personally, I'm the big proponent of the parent-child interface strategy. For me, that also involves driving wedges between parents and children and causing chaos there.
I still
I kind of get concerned about that though, because children are at the mercy of their parents. So when you do kind of turn that debate on amongst them,
but it's literally going to destroy the parents.
It,
The parents,
yeah,
what is going to happen
the
is
interactions I see happening are actually pretty positive. You actually sometimes have the opportunity to turn both parties against it and have this sort of catharsis moment. In general, I think it has to happen almost as a feature of just raising the profile of this in general. This is so untalked about. How, like, just from a matter of first principles, how do you deal with something that you're not even allowed to talk about? Imagine the civil rights struggle, but you're not allowed to actually talk about that Black people get arrested for moving off the back of the bus or entering a cafe through the wrong entrance or using the wrong bathroom or water fountain. How would you even begin to address it?
that you have to go around the gatekeepers, and that's what we're doing.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it is a bypassing of most of the gatekeeping mechanisms that limit the discussion of this.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And that's the whole thing is like I was getting sick of Facebook, like when you go on Facebook and you post on there, in my opinion, you're circle jerking. Like that's
Yep.
you're masturbating your friend. There's nothing more to it than that. Like,
Franny Max may be the person who first pioneered this. Apparently, she was at the Washington rally years and years ago, like maybe 2011 or so, and this field trip of like kids walked by, and she just started talking to them, and the teachers were going nuts, but the kids were interested. Yeah, so
that's crazy. Well, yeah, I think that Greg's parent-child interface is something that I think is going to be a very strong solution going forward. In fact, I want to include it in some
and
of our.
people have finally started deploying it. There's some people in Atlanta that have tried it. There's Brett Johnson at Cockfight, who's now fairly aggressively doing it, mostly at college football games. He was doing it, but there's a lot of younger than college people that are in the lines there and are in attendance. So it's still very,
Who
very
are the
valuable.
people?
There's
who are
some
the
great pictures of him talking to people and doing the fist bump thing.
Speaker idea again.
Yeah, Scott's got a great idea with the drone with the speaker.
You just record, the information, what you're gonna say,
Mhm.
and then you just put it on tie a speaker to a drone, fly it up,
Well, yeah,
play it through the speaker.
Halloween of like 2017 or
Don't have to
2018,
be
I
there.
basically did that, except I did it with my car and a megaphone. I rigged up an auxiliary input too.
Well, this so you get to be much farther away. There's no like if people be looking around, but they'll just see the drone. They won't see a person.
Maybe. I
So,
mean, drones have a limited ability to hover in one place for an extended period, and carrying audio equipment on them isn't very easy either.
well, it doesn't have to be a big speaker. Just one of the Bluetooth ones, or one maybe it can have still some data to record it, and then you just fly it over to people. 10 feet over them. That's it.
And they break it. No.
Yeah, I mean, I envision taking it and just
No,
playing
it's
the
just
sounds of the
me in a
child.
shitbox car with the window rolled down and a megaphone with
That's
an
good
input
too.
to my phone with me screaming about it. It was interesting.
So we talk also about like Facebook Intactivism. What about TikTok Intactivism?
That may be the bleeding edge of some of the stuff that's going on right now. I mean, I'll be honest. I think Dan had it very correct there. Whoever said it, it's a total circle jerk over there. There's not that much good quality interactions that actually go. I mean, I would argue that Twitter, I mean, as much of a sewer as Twitter is, there's arguably more opportunity for exchanging information with new people, new faces, young people, than there's on Facebook. I mean, that's not to say Facebook's bad. I think it's actually a fairly good organizing type platform, which is why I'm kind of mad that nobody has really. Right, so that you've got Gab and Parler that have kind of cloned Twitter's microblog platform, but nobody's really tried to clone a free speech version of Facebook, unfortunately.
What about MeWe?
Is that a new one?
It's like it was created a few years ago
What
by
is it
a guy
called?
named MeWe,
MeWe, yeah.
MEWE. And
We.
basically it's like Facebook, but it doesn't have like the data mining.
Ooh.
And
Yeah,
I
I've got,
mean, yeah.
I've got MeWe on my phone. I'm actually gonna start using it. Yeah, I think diversifying social media is very powerful too, because I really think that well, Facebook is going to start to see declines. A lot of people are getting sick of it, you know.
Yeah. And also another one is VK.
What is that one?
True. Yes, that's actually that's something not to shake a stick at. That's actually a legitimate alternative. I'm surprised more people haven't tried.
Which one is that?
VK.
They contact. It's run by the Russians, probably the Russian government.
Be done with this. Let's go over the. I know I was going to organize our meeting and I was going to do something with going over the planning. Let me do that real quick, and then we'll end it. And we can talk about things if you guys want to stay on and talk about things or whatever you guys want to do. Here's the campaign ideas. Okay, so Greg, I want you to pick. I want to pick your mind on this, or everybody today. The sequence I'm going to just run through with you real quick. Where we're gonna the overall sequence is this. Initially, we're going to start with FGM. The reason why is because people already have an understanding of what FGM is. They already equate certain emotional responses to it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to condition the response.
An incorrect understanding, but they do have an understanding.
Yeah.
Or preconceived notions. They have a lot of preconceived notions there.
Yeah. And those preconceived myths that they have about FGM are going to all be addressed in the process of the FGM campaign, right? So anyways, this is the FGM campaign. American doctors get away with female genital mutilation, feminists quiet. We already have this written out in a blog. It's a pretty good one. I don't know if you guys like it or not. Like, give me your ideas on it. If you want to make it better, there's ways, let me know. All of these campaigns are always going to be on the blog. Okay, so whenever I write a campaign, it's going to be on the blog for weeks before we ever send it. So you're going to have time to go on there and look at it, read it, make sure it's something that you support and you want to be involved with. Because if you're helping me gather volunteer information, I'm not sending out the right stuff, you probably don't want to be involved with it, right? So it's important for me to keep this process open so that you guys understand that when you do this, you have ownership of this. It's not just me sitting here directing you or whatever. I'm just giving you I'm helping you with your intactivism, right? I'm helping you, give you the solutions to some of the issues that we come with doing intactivism by ourselves, right? Like if we don't have some support, who's going to actually make a database and run a campaign and make it who's going to do that by themselves? Very few people. But we all have these great ideas. Scott was talking about getting, child psychology, whatever, what do you call it? Anyways,
Hypnotherapist. It's a hypnotherapist.
somebody to help with child psychology, some sort of psychologist. Anyways, negative effects of FGM. So there's a sequence to this. So American doctors get away with FGM or female genital mutilation, feminist quiet. That's a clickbait title, right? We get them involved. Then the
It's
next
not so
one.
much. It's not so
ahead.
much that they're quiet. It's that it was never really actually confronted and dealt with. Right, like
Exactly.
they're basically given a pass on it. That you know, like that as
they
if it
don't
never
know
happened.
it.
There's so
That's-
much amnesia as to the
That's-
actual.
That's the thing is I've got a whole group of feminist organizations. We've got parent groups. We've got international organizations like USAIDs and all those other things, political organizations. We're going to be sending out campaigns to all of these groups. So, anyways, and then we're going to call them. We're going to follow up with phone calls. I want to plan like, we were talking about politics. I know you're saying something about someone who wanted to get involved with lobbying state politicians. I want to have a video day where we take a video and we actually go and we approach these politicians and we try to get them on video having a stance one way or the other. You know, come out and say what your position is on this issue, and we get them to say one way or the other. I think that's going to be very powerful because this is nobody wants to even talk about this. Okay, negative effects of FGM and why it's done. So this is where we get into the breaking down the myths, social norms that perpetuate FGM. Female genital mutilation support their own genital cutting, right? Sadly, many victims think that this was a good thing, right? This is where that's at the top of the list. It's cleaner, medical benefits. Does FGM have medical benefits? Shocking article by Yale PhD in medical ethics, Brian Earp. Okay, so types of FGM 1 through 4, what's removed, the different types. Here's the different types. So this is just the different types. Embryonic development of both sexes. So this is now we're starting to connect into the male genitals. FGM equals MGM equals FGM equals IGM equals stop it. Okay, and FGM, ending FGM requires coming clean with our MGM. Hypocrisy will not survive the internet. Unless we understand the cultures and why they do it. Anyways, these are just kind of outlines of the whole thing. Any thoughts, any additions, any ways of making this better? Nobody? I guess I'm doing a really good job then. Thank you.
You are. You're doing a really good job.
Thank
Yes,
you.
you are.
I hope so. I really care about this. Okay, assault and medical fraud is already illegal. Okay, so this is where I'm going to get into the whole, we already have the laws on the books kind of thing, ending FGM. So you see how I get this? We start off at the FGM and like, they're going to be like, oh, well, his goal is the FGM law, right? But no, that's not actually my goal. My goal is literally to say like, we already have the laws. Let's use them, let's utilize them, and let's apply it to both male and female across the board, like our 14th Amendment says, right? So anyways, ending FGM, the last one is ending FGM, and the ways of doing that. And the key of that is being unhypocritical about it.
Well,
Go ahead.
I don't know about the previous thing. I think it actually probably is going to require an explicit movement and explicit new laws. But I mean, in the interim, you could be pressuring prosecutors to prosecute under existing generic battery and mayhem.
I look at it this way, and I agree with you on that. I agree with you, and I would
in principle, I agree with you, but in practice, I don't know how the
whatever works is what I would do, of course. Okay, let's move on. Anatomy, structure, and function. Okay, self-sensitivity testing, histology reports of Taylor, Cold, and Lockwood. I think the first thing should be histology reports of Taylor, Cold, and Lockwood. Why? Because nobody's ever heard of these. Then we move on to Sorrells, okay? And then Taylor, Cold, and Lockwood, they also support Sorrells, right? Fine touch, sensitivity.
This came to me. The big picture kind of thing. Some people are really respond well. They like conspiracy theories sort of thing. What if you kind of traced it back to the circumfetish thing and told them what that is and who's in it and like what would motivate the cutters, you know, like
I think
explain
that would be
that-
down
that-
here somewhere. That would be like, that would be a whole thing. I need to
help?
put that in here. So good point. Circumfetish.
Does that help any? Like if
Trying to
Yeah, but
explain
here's the
it.
deal. Here's the deal with that. That one
It's
is
basically
gonna,
the intersection of hardcore BDSM plus pedophilia.
yeah, and all, and you know, covered in the facade of fraudulent medical
And the pretty credible evidence that we
labels.
have that people like Sean was
It's a
involved with them.
It's masked with medical treatment, but you know, it's just fake.
That's a pretty deep dive. I think a more fundamental thing would just be going back to the Victorian origins of it. Like,
well, that's the history right here. So we're gonna
Yeah.
let's get into
so
the
much
let me-
amnesia.
What I want to do is I want you guys to tell me, okay, so these are the general outlines. If you think, hey, psychology should be before anatomy, structure and function, or last time we actually switched that. I was doing psychology first, and I realized anatomy, structure, and function, because they won't understand the psychology effects if they don't understand anatomy, right? So let's give them the hidden anatomy. So
Well,
I
mean,
thought that would
I
be
don't know.
first. Go ahead.
You could the vasopressin argument, the bonding, you know, the receptors. It you know about that, right? I think you might
Yeah,
be
bonding.
kind of I think you might be hinting at that, where they
What
have to
what
be
does wait,
two
what does
entities.
vasopressin have to do with it? Where
That's the hormone that women produce that that the men's foreskin absorbs and then puts into his brain through the blood,
oh,
and then creates like love and commitment. So without it, his brain actually develops differently because his brain knows it's not going to get the vasopressin because the receptors were cut off. So the brain
The
doesn't really
pheromones.
develop. Yeah, the
well,
brain doesn't develop
vasopressin,
to receive it.
I think it's also known as antidiuretic hormone. It causes fluid retention and raises the blood pressure. I thought that was the physiological.
Moderates hydration.
Let's move on. Okay, so FGM, we're good, solid with that. Anatomy, structure, and function. Anybody argue that that should not be the second campaign?
You know, I don't really know how you're organizing this.
I mean,
so
I
I'm
don't
not
object to
gonna
any of
argue.
these. We just
Yeah.
chime in with ideas or modifiers or advice.
That-
Yeah,
That's
like
exactly
I mean,
it. I'm saying that
if you
too,
guys
but-
have thoughts, I want your input. Like, I want you to take this apart. I want you to say, this is
Okay.
fucked up. This is better. This
no,
is
no,
cool.
I don't think there's anything
I-
wrong with it. I just want to know, how do you organize it? Is there
Well, and that was going to be my question too, is all of this information going to be presented in that
Oh, good question. So let me
disbursement of
show you.
information?
Let me just show you
It's
the first one so
also-
you guys see it. It's kind of being a blog format like this. So you, I'm just let me open up this blog. So this is the first one. Doctor mutilates 100 little girls' genitals in the USA, gets off scot-free, feminist quiet. So this right here is the blog. So you go on here and it's going to have, this right here is just a description of the phase 2 of NLI's outreach program. And then you go down here and this is the blog itself. Doctor chooses to mutilate 100 little girls' genitals. This is what we're going to actually send in the email to the database. Okay, we're going to have you're going to have some of these we have to cut it down to like 300 words or 500 words. We're going to have like a couple of different ones, but of different sizes, and then we're going to send those out. So this I want to go out to every bit of the database we have, and once we get to the stage, I want all of us are going to be running this database to their own group, right? You're going to be sending out these emails once a night. So what I would say is you make 5 emails, 5 emails that are easy to remember, maybe with a number sequence, and you go down each email and you send 100 emails per email. And then at the end of the night, you've done 500 emails. You do that for 5 days, and then within 5 days, you've got 2,500 emails out there. And that's a lot of emails. So that's kind of how we're going to do that. But anyways, when you go through this, you can read this. This is longer than I wanted it to be, but I have a difficulty with making things short. So if you can make things shorter for me, you're my best friend. But I started getting into the psychological or the harm, and this was way more difficult than originally viewed it. I originally viewed, I could just write this out myself just off the top of my head and just kind of like do that. But I realized that there's a lot of, I just need to be a little, I just have to do a little bit deeper dive to make sure that I'm doing everything 100%. And so anyways, the negative effects of FGM, I started getting into this, but I wrote out quite a few, but we're going to, I'll have this finished for you by next week. So anyways, that's kind of what they're going to look like. Each one of these will be a topic. It's going to be like almost like a chapter in a book. And then each chapter, you know, goes out and then once a week, each chapter. So this week, we're going to send out the American Doctors Get Away with Female Mutilation, Feminist Quiet. We're going to work all week on sending that out. The next week, we send out the negative effects of FGM. The next week, we do FGM and why it's done. The next week, types of FGM. The next week, embryonic development. This is a constant, never-ending thing. Then at the end of this, when we're done with this campaign, when we've done all these campaigns right here, we might shorten this out. I want to make it shorter, but I don't want to cheapen it. I want to make it shorter, but not cheapen it. When we're done with all of that, at the end of that, that's when we start to tell Intactivism campaigns. And then we start calling these people and making phone calls, and you know, we'll run that for probably 4 to 6 weeks before we then do another campaign. Right? So it's going to take us a long chunk of time just to run one campaign, then followed by another campaign, then followed by another campaign, then followed by another campaign. This is where this is going to be powerful. And, you know, they say that it takes 8 times for somebody to see a billboard before they actually read the billboard. I mean, they have to drive by it 8 times and see a billboard before they actually read the billboard. And then they have to read it 8 times before they actually take any sales action. And this is marketing and sales stuff, you know, that people have studied this. You know, they'll do ways of monitoring whether or not they're successful and stuff like that. Anyways, I think that this is, do you guys have any thoughts on the sequence of the FGM right now? Is there any way to make it shorter? Anyway,
I think we're going to have to.
Yeah, because we can't do this many emails, right?
Yeah, we're not going to make the progress that we need to. So we need to somehow, I agree, condense this information. First of all, people are going to get tired. So, yeah, I definitely agree. Each one of these topics is going to have to be shrunk down to more concise. I think the thing that you showed me that you have distributed out is a good starting place, and putting links, but we're giving bullet points because people are very simplistic and they only need a couple of pieces of information at a time. So whatever you showed me, that format that you had sent out to the news agencies, that was kind of bold in your face, kind of bullet points.
Well, that email got us 20 articles printed.
I know, and I think that format for this purpose and connecting, you know, like maybe if we put the sentence there, then it'll click out to that blog or to that article, to the study or whatever it is that.
Yeah, for sure. Links in the articles, for sure.
Yes, I think that is a better way, with a very concise 1-page bullet point.
See, I agree. And that's why this right here, we need to fix this. Like, I mean, it's really hard for me to cut out one word out of this thing because I want to
it's
say
also important. Yes,
but
I understand.
But like, I mean, if I could get an editor, I need an editor. If I could have somebody that could edit for me, I tend to be too wordy. I tend to be too logical, you know, like, so anybody that's, you know, and that's why I wanted to keep this open, because I get better advice a lot of times. A lot of times my best work is when I get advice from other people and I see how they see things, because it helps me to understand how people see things, because I don't really see things the way most people do. But anyways, that's kind of, any other questions on that? Okay, so let's condense this. What can we make smaller? Embryonic development of both sexes. Could that be involved?
I think that your thing is good. I think that this is good. I think that it just somehow we need to get this information in this 1 week. Somehow it's a link out. Maybe we have these as our headers and then 1 or 2 bullet points. And then, like I say, the link out to the valuable information that we definitely want them to go and view.
Well, the thing is the way this is set up is an internet marketing campaign, right? So
Mhm.
with email internet marketing, you're going to send out a series of emails, and the emails should be, like almost like a 3-paragraph, 1-page thing, right?
Yes.
This is too much. I mean, I hate it because I want this to be this big, but again, this is, if I can make this smaller, we should. We could always
me
keep
think
this one
about it.
bigger, and we could change it in the future. Anyways, so but I still want to write each one of these out. Like, I really want these to be a whole email all on their own instead of just one email, because I want this to be a series of emails that they are taking along through a journey, and at the end of the journey they get phone calls. And the phone calls, we may get to the phone calls and realize that they didn't even read nothing, but we get to the phone calls and we, hey, do you mind reading this emails that I sent you? And then you get them involved in the emails, and then the next time they pay attention. It's just building process. Okay.
I got you.
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do ending FGM. I'm going to put that here in FGM, IGM. That equals, I think this is good right here. What do you guys think? I think this is going to be that's 6 emails. 6 emails, followed by phone call campaigns. Any negatives, thoughts, criticisms on this sequence right here? Okay. Yes.
I would just say that for FGM, I'm slightly less familiar with it because MGM kind of seems like, I mean, they're both bad, but MGM kind of seems like the thing specifically that's being fought, and FGM isn't so much a thing here.
Of course, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we're using this as a push button issue. It's just a way to get in the door. It's just because people already understand. People already have in their minds built up the idea that FGM is bad. Okay, so what I'm working with is it's called there's psychology behind it. It's operant conditioning. You take something that gets something excited, and you can condition them with something that is similar, right? So that you want to associate with it. You associate it with time. So by Pavlov's dog, by every time you ring the bell, the dogs associated the ringing of the bell with food. So eventually you could ring the bell and they would salivate without even smelling food, because their brain associated the ringing the bell with the food. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this emotional response to FGM where they're already pissed off. They're already, oh, that's horrible. And then I'm slowly merging it into MGM. And I'm doing it through a process that's not overt in the beginning. Like, I'm not coming out and saying, hey, I'm against all cutting of all children. I'm coming out and saying, this happened in our society. This is bad. I'm using the FGM case to push the buttons in America to piss people off. That's kind of why I'm doing it that way. Okay, anatomy, structure, and function. Let's move on to that one, because I think the FGM thing, I think we're pretty good on that. I'm going to fill that out. I'm going to write it all out. Again, if you guys want to help me with this stuff, by all means. If anybody here says, hey, you know what, I want to write about this area, let me know. Because right now I'm just going to write it all myself. I'm writing it myself, but I want people involved in this. So if you have a certain aspect of this that you're knowledgeable about, by all means, let me know. Okay, anatomy, structure, and function. We're just going to go through this, and then we're going to end this call, because I think everybody's falling apart on me now. We got histology reports. We got fine touch sensitivity testing. Orgasm potential, I think, should be next. Oh, no, mechanical function. So sensitivity testing, that can go there. How it affects the females. Complications. Okay, so histology, fine touch testing, mechanicals, function and protection, orgasm, female effects on, American doctors uneducated, and complications. Any thoughts on that? Should I move out complications to a later, make it a whole nother campaign? That could be a whole campaign on complications. Any thoughts on that? We could also make a small paragraph, a small blog on complications, and then do it later. Like, we could have a whole
section of the list of
whole
that.
thing of complications. I mean, but complications is a you know what? Let's have one that's touched on it. You guys think that 7 emails is too many to have in a row? Anything that we should take out or add in? I'm going with it. Okay, guys, any thoughts, questions, things you want to add before we end everything today? Go ahead.
I was thinking also, we're talking about FGM, but also we might want to have a section also about intersex genital
Yeah.
cutting.
That's actually down here. Good point. I did have it down here. Yeah, I think the intersex genital cutting is a hot button issue right now. It is a very, it's a point of leverage we could use if we use it correctly. Let's see. I know I have it in here.
Hey Dan,
Yes.
I mean you may not agree with this, but I think like the less we have to tell somebody to change their mind, it's actually just easier, because if they do it and they don't know much, but they take our side, then that's good enough. You don't have to overcomplicate it. You don't have to get too technical with people to convince them in some cases.
Yeah, I agree. You're right. We don't have to overcomplicate it. That's why I need your advice,
Sometimes
because I tend to
keep
overcomplicate
it simple.
things.
Yeah, I mean, with some people you can keep it simple, and other people you got to go deep. But whatever. If it's whatever
Well,
if
another thing that you guys
change
got to
their mind, if
realize
you
is
get them to
these
rest, that
are
matters.
educated lists. These are not the average person on the street corner that you're going to be talking to when you're going on Facebook. These are not that experienced. That's what I got to tell you guys. This is why I'm like, wow, this is so freaking powerful. Like, because when you're having these conversations, like, these people are not douchebags. They're not idiots. They have college degrees. They've taken psychology, they've taken sociology, they've taken critical thinking, they've taken logic. They know what an ad hominem is. They know what a red herring is, or a straw man fallacy. They've taken these basic courses, and it's a different level of talking with these people. And it's way more fun to me than dragging in the mud with these pigs. So I'm so disgusted by them. And then I walk away just feeling dirty and used like a wet rag, a wet, dirty, stinky rag. And I'm like, this doesn't make me feel good. It doesn't make me like feel like I accomplished something, but this does. This here does. And I know that I keep telling you guys, I know the database sucks, but like, we still have to get the database. Without the database, nothing happens. So there's a little bit of elbow grease, there's a little bit of commitment, and you have to get this stuff, this data. But once you get it, we're gonna start hitting this up, and this is gonna be we're gonna be like focusing on this list. This is it, where it's there. We've got it done, and let's start hammering this list over and over and over and over and over again. And these people are going to constantly get emails until whatever, until they change, until the society changes, until they've all told us to take us off their list, right? Yeah, and if somebody ever does ask us to take us off their list, we're going to take them off the list. We're not going to email them once they told us not to email them anymore. So, these lists are going to develop and season over time. You're going to have friends off this list. You might develop relationships off this list. You're going to save children off this list. You're going to feel accomplishment from this that you never felt from that type of interaction that you've had on Facebook. And that's, to me, like, man, like, I don't know, like, I couldn't give somebody the feeling that this gives me. Like, you can't buy it at a store. You can't earn, you can't get it any other way than helping somebody else. There's just no other way to get that feeling, than knowing that baby is not hurting because of me. He wasn't harmed because of me. You know what I mean? His life, his entire freaking life is going to be different. I could wonder and imagine if I lived this life without this anger issue, without this, it's almost like I lose my ability to think clearly and logically, right? Like, it's just, and I know that this comes from my mutilation, like, it's the only thing that makes sense. I wasn't sexually abused. I wasn't beat up as a kid. My dad wasn't physically, I mean, he did things physically. He was aggressive. He had his anger issues, and I associated those with that. But to me, like, this came from this issue. And I think that, understanding that is the biggest issue in our society.